Let's just dive right into this. Today, we're unpacking a biological mystery that is probably playing out in your house every single night: the puzzle of teenage sleep. We're going to look at exactly why teen body clocks shift. So if you're a parent, a teacher, or honestly just a biology nerd wanting to know what's going on under the hood of a growing mind, you are absolutely in the right place. Here is the big question. Why on earth does midnight feel like 9 p.m. to a teenager? We've all seen this highly relatable scenario, right? You've got a 14-year-old completely wide awake at midnight, swearing they're just going to watch one more video, completely wired, while you are literally dragging yourself to bed. We tend to look at this and think it's a behavioral issue, or maybe even outright defiance. But as we're going to see in this explainer, it's actually a fascinating biological detective story. To figure this out, we've got to ground ourselves in the science. Think about your circadian rhythm. Basically, that's your internal body clock. It's the thing that dictates when you feel alert and when you feel sleepy. And the master switch for this entire operation is a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is essentially the chemical signal that whispers to your brain, hey, the sun went down, it's time to wind down and get ready for rest. Now, what's really wild is what happens when you compare a preteen's clock to a teenager's clock. For a younger kid, that melatonin typically starts to rise around 8 or 9 p.m. Makes total sense. But for a teenager going through puberty, that internal clock gets completely rewired. Their natural melatonin surge doesn't happen until much later, which means their brain literally does not trigger true sleepiness until 10 or 11 at night. And here is the real biological kicker. During puberty, a teenager's internal body clock physically shifts later by up to 2 full hours. 2 hours! This brilliantly explains why your teenager isn't just being stubborn when they tell you they aren't tired at 9:30 p.m. It's biology, guys, not about attitude. Their brain genuinely believes it's still the middle of the evening. But here is where that delayed biology violently crashes into our modern schedules, creating something called social jet lag. Because early school start times force teenagers out of bed at the crack of dawn, they build up this massive sleep debt all week long. Then the weekend hits and they sleep in forever trying to catch up. But that exhausting cycle just throws their internal clock even further out of whack, making that early Sunday night bedtime absolutely agonizing to achieve.
This really requires a total paradigm shift in how we think about those nighttime hours. Sleep is not just rest, it's active construction time. A teenager's brain doesn't just power down like you're closing a laptop. While they're sleeping, that brain is working overtime, actively building the vital infrastructure they need for learning, memory, and emotional regulation.
Let's break down what that construction actually looks like. The early chunk of the night is heavily dominated by deep, slow-wave sleep. And this stage is an absolute superpower for students. This is when the brain replays what happened that day. It takes facts and procedures like a new algebra formula or a Spanish vocab list and moves it from short-term memory straight into long-term storage. So when a kid stays up late cramming, they are literally sabotaging the exact sleep stage that locks that information in.
Okay, so what about the other end of the night? That's where rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, comes in, dominating the hours right before morning. REM is absolutely crucial for resetting emotional processing, fueling creative problem-solving, and diffusing all that intense social friction teenagers deal with. Because REM is packed into the tail end of the sleep cycle, dragging a kid out of bed at 6 a.m. disproportionately robs them of the exact sleep stage they need to regulate their emotions.
Think of it kind of like a seesaw. On one side, you have the amygdala, which is basically the brain's rapid, intense emotional reaction center. On the other side, you've got the prefrontal cortex, the logical, moderating control center. In a brain that's well rested, these two are in perfect balance. The prefrontal cortex keeps a steady hand on those quick emotional spikes so the teenager doesn't get completely overwhelmed.
But here is the crucial takeaway. Sleep debt completely weakens that prefrontal cortex, which leaves the amygdala highly reactive. When they lose sleep, the seesaw violently tips. That moderating hand just vanishes. This means a minor annoying comment from a sibling or a tiny hiccup on an assignment doesn't just feel frustrating to them, it feels catastrophic. They aren't just acting out. Their brain is physically wired in that moment to feel emotions far more intensely.
And obviously, we cannot talk about modern adolescent sleep without addressing the glowing rectangle in the room. As the saying goes, it's not just the light, it's what's on the screen. Screens introduce a massive modern complication. They act as a dual threat, actively fighting against a body clock that, as we know, is already biologically delayed.
It really is a dual threat.
On the physiological side, the blue light beaming from screens actually suppresses melatonin, delaying that necessary sleep signal by another 30 to 60 minutes. But on the psychological side, the content itself, whether it's a stressful group chat or a super engaging video, cranks up their arousal. Even if they turn the brightness all the way down, a mentally stimulated brain makes falling asleep an incredibly uphill battle.
So how do we actually help them? The answer lies in the 30 to 60-minute wind-down rule. Step 1, you have to stop screen engagement 30 to 60 minutes before they intend to sleep. Step 2, physically dim the lights in the bedroom to help cue up that delayed melatonin. And Step 3, downshift into low-stimulation activities, like reading a book or just having quiet conversation. We have to intentionally build this buffer zone so the brain has a chance to downshift without fighting biology.
The whole goal is to work with the clock, not against it. First, remember that consistency beats catch-up. Try to keep weekend wake-up times relatively similar to weekdays to avoid that social jet lag. Next, use morning light as a reset button. Opening the curtains immediately when they wake up helps anchor that circadian rhythm for the whole day. And finally, if their schedule allows, shift heavy cognitive homework earlier in the evening so their mind isn't racing right when it's supposed to be winding down.
Now, if you are the one interacting with a teenager, the language you use is absolute gold. You have to make it a conversation, not a command. Instead of barking, "Put that phone away and go to sleep right now," try framing it around the biology we just talked about. Say something like, "I know your body clock makes it hard to sleep right now. Let's figure out a routine together." Framing sleep as a shared biological challenge instead of an arbitrary rule massively reduces defensiveness and builds genuine collaboration.
If you want to dig even deeper into this topic, there is some incredible material out there. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker is basically a masterclass on the mechanics of sleep. The Sleep-Deprived Teen by Julie Wright and Heather Turgeon is packed with fantastic, family-tested strategies specifically for adolescents. And Nurture Shock by Poe Bronson and Ashley Merriman features a widely cited amazing chapter on adolescent sleep debt that really brought this into the mainstream. Definitely check those out. As we start to wrap this explainer up, just keep this in mind. Small, consistent shifts matter way more than demanding total perfection. Turning all this biological understanding into a practical routine is a gradual, step-by-step process. Some people find that utilizing resources like the printable guides and workbooks from Playprint Pals can really help families track these shifts. It encourages open conversation and creates a much healthier environment without turning bedtime into a nightly battlefield.
I'll leave you with this one final thought. Knowing that their internal clock is biologically delayed, what is one small shift you can make to your teen's evening routine tonight? Just one. Think about it. Use this new understanding to completely reframe your approach. Stop fighting the biology and start working with it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I can't wait to guide you through our next topic.